How's it going, fellow reefers? As always, God bless you and thank you for being here. I'm Gage and this is Candy Coral Aquatics. If you're new to my channel, please seriously think about subscribing and hitting that notification bell. This is where I talk about all things reefing, but more importantly, where I share the information I've gathered on my tank with you guys to help you become better hobbyists at this hobby we call reefing. We're really close to 2,000 subscribers, so if you could please help the channel get there, I would really appreciate it. Today, we're going to be doing a comparison video. I know how much everybody likes comparison videos, and I like them too. You have a mindset of what it is that you want to do next with your tank, and a lot of times we go to comparison videos because we're not really sure which product we want, or which brand, I guess we should say, of the product that we're looking for, and we want to make sure we're getting the most bang for the buck. So today, guys, we're going to be going over two pumps that I've had in my aquarium for quite a while now, both from different manufacturers, but both capable of doing very similar things. We'll go over some pros and cons of each, and then I'll kind of give you guys my final decision on what it is I would do if I had the money in hand looking for a new wave maker. So guys, what I want you to do is I want you to grab a piece of paper and something to write with. If you're super new to the hobby, this will really help you. If you're advanced in the hobby, you guys probably already know this, so you probably don't have to worry about it. But once you get your pen and paper or whatever you're going to write with, go ahead and sit down and draw for me just a regular triangle. So a triangle has 3 points on it, right? So if I had to give you guys 3 pieces of information or 3 key things that I want you to keep track of and keep an eye on, it would look just like this. On the top point of your triangle, I want you guys to write the word flow. In the bottom right corner point, I want you guys to write the word H2O or water quality. And then on the left-hand point, I want you guys to write the word lighting. So your triangle should look like this. Top point, flow. Bottom right-hand corner, water quality, and left-hand corner, lighting. These are the 3 pinnacle points any reef tank that you need to master in order to have a successful, healthy, thriving reef tank. So if anything is going on in your tank that you don't like, refer back to this chart and start seeing which of those points might be the cause for what's going on. Today, we're going to be talking about that top point, which is flow. So flow is, as I mentioned before, one of the most important things that you can master in your aquarium. But with all the different information on flow, especially the different brands and products of pumps out there, it can be a little bit confusing on what to buy. There are some really cheap pumps out there, just directional laminar flow pumps that blow in a straight line. I myself started off with those with my very first saltwater aquarium, and while they are okay short term, long term, they don't really turn out to be very beneficial. Corals don't like laminar flow, which is just straight flow blown at them all the time. So when you buy a cheap pump that doesn't allow you to vary up the flow pattern, type, or intensity, it can be pretty difficult to kind of position that flow in such a fashion that all your coral is going to be happy. Because coral likes different types of flow, we really should be giving them different flow types and patterns throughout a 24-hour period, or at least do our best to kind of mix up that flow several times a day so the entire, surrounding area of the coral is getting the appropriate flow, aeration, and nutrient transport that it needs. And because SPS corals like high intensity flow and LPS and soft corals don't really like to be blown around a whole bunch, it's really important that we're delivering a changing flow pattern throughout the day so everybody gets what they want and everybody can be as happy as possible. So the 2 pumps that I've decided to put in my aquarium and go over with you today is the MP Vortech Quiet Drive by Ecotech Marine and the Nero 5 submersible pump by AI. Both companies are very reputable. They're very high quality pumps, and they produce a lot of other high quality equipment. On my 60-gallon tank, I actually run 2 26 Hydra HDs from AI, and I've been very, very happy with those lights. So let's go ahead and let's go over the MP Vortech Quiet Drive by Ecotech Marine first. It's the box on the left-hand side of the tank. So the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the price points. So this is a very expensive pump. Let me go ahead and grab it. Maybe you guys can see it a little bit better. This is a very expensive pump. It's going to run you $300. Now, to the best of my knowledge, it's a set price. Kind of like, I don't know what states you guys are in and what all your laws are, but like here in Michigan, alcohol, you're only allowed to sell it at a certain price point, and it's probably like that, I guess, everywhere. These are actually the same. So there's a certain price point that the manufacturer sets out, and you have to sell it at that price. So no matter where you go, unless you're buying it secondhand, expect to spend about $300 or so on the MP Vortech Quiet Drive. So some pros about the pump. It is quiet, but depending on what kind of flow mode you have it on, it's not the quietest. Like when I first purchased this pump, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the quietest pump that I had ever purchased. And that was true. But sometimes when you get into the high intensity pulsating, wave formations, when the pump is switching on and off fast, like voom, 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 depending on the intensity of that flow pattern that you have, it really can sound like that. It's quite intense. So, you could be sitting there and all of a sudden you hear boom, boom. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still quiet enough that it's not really a problem, but if your tank is in your bedroom like mine is and you're trying to sleep at night, sometimes it can be a little aggravating. But I will admit it's still probably the quietest pump that I had ever picked up at that time. It does come with 6 different flow modes on it. Okay, I don't know how good you can see that. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. So we got Reef Crest Random, Lagoon Mode, Gyre Mode, Short Pulse, Tidal Swell, and Nutrient Transport Mode. So it's definitely got something for everybody. What I really like about this pump is they actually produced a couple of waveforms that are particular to SPS tanks, like the Nutrient Transport Mode and the Tidal Swell. What those will actually do is they will create like a pulsating kind of randomized flow throughout the day, and then towards like the end of the cycle, it'll do what's called a Nutrient Transport Mode, where it does a very high intensity kind of aggravated vroom 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 pulsating kind of motion, where the flow pattern will actually go forward and then backwards. And what this does is it actually pulls up, and I've seen it work, so it does do a really good job. It'll actually pull up detritus or unate food or whatever you might have floating around at the bottom or in crevices or corners. You can actually see it pull that up off the bottom of the tank, and it gets it in the water column, so that way your filtration can hopefully remove it. So I really do have to give it to Ecotech for that. That is a really cool option, and it does work very, very well. The other nice thing that I like about it is the controller that comes with it. You can actually adjust the flow intensity at your leisure. So here on the back, that is the control panel right there. And then that's what the pump looks like. So the pump has a dry side and a wet side. So the dry side obviously goes on the outside of the tank, where the wet side is going inside, and that's actually what is pumping the water, moving the water. And then there's the control dial where you can cycle through the different modes, you can set modes, and then of course you can control the intensity of the flow. So for $300, it is a very sturdy pump. It is a very quiet pump. It definitely comes with a lot of features, lots of different wave formations already programmed into it, and I think it's a very, very acceptable pump for any reef tank. And of course, the MP10, that was the largest I needed to go for a 60-gallon tank. I think they have smaller ones. Don't quote me. You might have to do the research yourself, because I didn't really look too far into the different sizes. I just kind of walked into the store and I was like, this is what I need. And they're like, oh, this would be perfect for you. So I didn't have to really do a bunch of research on sizes. But they do make a lot larger ones for a lot bigger tanks. Of course, larger the pump, the more you're going to pay, right up probably in the $400 range. So they are very expensive, but they are worth it. You get what you pay for. Now, some of the dislikes, some of the cons about this, like I kind of mentioned before, depending on what flow mode you have, it's not always the quietest. While I can kind of overlook that because it is still fairly quiet, it is kind of annoying to know that I, purchased a quiet drive, and at times this thing sounds like a jet engine. The other thing that I don't like about it is, especially when you're running in a pulsating mode, the motor on the outside of the tank, the dry side, can get quite hot. While I've never had any failures or issues with that, just knowing that pump is running all day long, 24/7, and it gets that hot, kind of makes me wonder what the long-term life, is of this pump. I believe I've had this pump for going on 2 years now, and I haven't had any issues. But, $300 a pump, I want that to last, a lot longer than 2 years. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll continue to run it. We'll see exactly what happens with the heat displacement there. I'm confident that the internals are built well enough and sound enough to where that heat intensity, it should factor in where it's not going to be a problem. But who knows? One of the other cons about it is you got to put it on the outside of the glass. A lot of your cheaper pumps that you can't really do all the fancy wave stuff with, they don't have a dry side. Like everything goes in the pump or in the aquarium, which some people like and some people don't like. I wouldn't want to have necessarily my entire pump in the aquarium. Like I wouldn't want to have a pump this large inside my aquarium because it is an eyesore, but I feel like there should be more of a benefit for having the pump on the outside of the aquarium glass. Like I feel like maybe they could have made it smaller, more compact, maybe less of an eyesore, because you can see it right here on the right hand side. It sticks out quite a bit. So you know, if you want to put flow on the back of your tank blowing forward and your tank is close to a wall, that could be a problem because of, you know, how much that does stick out. Minor inconvenience, maybe I'm nitpicking, but I do feel like for the money and the technology that they probably could have made that motor a little bit smaller. Another con about the equipment, it's hard to take apart and clean, I think. Um, it just seems like when it's in there for a while, the way that you actually have to take it apart, you pull, let me see if I can get you guys a picture of it here. You actually pull, you know, your wet side out, and right here, I don't think you can see it in the picture. Maybe you can. See that little white gap right there? There's a seam that runs all the way down here. So you have to grab this and twist it to separate that. You know, it kind of twists on, and then you can pull that apart. The issue I have with that, though, is it's kind of hard to do, especially once it's sat in the water, you know, for a while, and then come cleaning time, it's kind of hard to separate. The other thing is I feel like it makes it really susceptible for this area to crack through here. It hasn't happened to me yet, but I feel like it's definitely a possibility. So if you go with this pump, just bear that in mind, that you have to kind of grab on to that plastic serrated section, if you will, and you have to kind of twist it to unscrew the back. So just be careful you don't apply too much pressure to break it. But overall, I really have been really happy with the pump. I don't really have too many complaints that would make me say, hey, no, it's not worth it. It's a great pump. It served me really well. So minus the few things that I said about it or that I think they could have done better, I think it is a great option. So let's now switch over to the Nero 5 submersible pump by AI. So again, starting off at price point, this one's about $200. I've seen it anywhere between like 180-ish up to 199. So comparing it to the MP10 Vortech Quiet Drive, it's, you know, it's $100 difference right there. So that almost buys you that second pump. So to me, I feel like price point, the Nero 5 is definitely the better buy. AI makes some really great equipment. I'm not trying to be biased or anything, partial to them, but I do like AI, but I like Ecotech too. But yeah, it does come in at about $100 cheaper. So, you know, that can, again, you might be able to buy two instead of just one of the Vortex. As far as the modes go, let me go ahead and grab the box here. It does come with preset modes, just like the MP10 does. So on the back here, so at first this doesn't look very fantastic. So let me just kind of explain what's going on here. So the included pump modes are random, pulse, constant, and then scheduled. So you can make your own. So it doesn't have quite as many options as the MP10, but when we're comparing the pulse and or the random mode to the MP10, I feel like it's just as sufficient as the MP10. Not quite as many options. I wish they would have added a few more options. I definitely got to give it to the Ecotech on that. They do have, you know, more options available in their pumps, maybe a little bit better flow patterns. So I got to give it to the Vortex on that. But this pump right here is definitely more than capable of doing anything that you want it to do. You know, you could maybe set one to random or pulse, and then you could set another back one to the opposite, or maybe even make your own flow pattern, which I think is kind of neat. This right here is the controller for it, but you don't really actually have to use it. What AI did with their Nero 5, which I really wish Ecotech would have done with their pumps, is they made an app so you can actually control your pump and your lighting from your phone. So Ecotech has an app that you can control the lighting from the phone, but as far as I am aware, in order to control their pumps, you have to have a reef link, which means you got to spend like another $200 to plug something else in to then link to the pump, to then link to your phone. That was a huge upset for Ecotech. Like, they really should have just came out with an app, not made their consumers go out and spend another couple $100 on a stupid little box that is nothing but like a Wi-Fi access point. I thought that was really silly. So what AI did is they actually just included the Nero 5 pump onto their AI app that they already had out. So I've had, for the last couple of years now, I've had the application to control my AI lights on my phone. It's their AI Prime app. Once they came out with the Nero 5, there was an update for the app that just allowed you to connect your Nero 5 pump right to your app. So I really, really think that's a huge advantage, and that's a huge buying factor for me personally, because I can just use my smartphone, whip that out, and I can control both flow and lights with the touch of a button. That's a huge win for me. Another thing that I really appreciate about the Nero 5 pump is it is super quiet. I mean, quiet. It is way quieter than the Ecotech is. The other thing that I really like is the pump itself is completely submergible. So right over here on the left-hand side, that's the Nero 5. The entire thing goes into the water. There is no dry side. On the outside of the glass, you have a very small magnet that's about maybe that big around. And then the entire pump is submerged into the tank. Now, if we were to compare the two, for some of you that are saying, hey, I don't really like the whole pump in the tank, that's kind of an eyesore. If you were to compare the two, the Nero 5 is maybe just a tad bigger than the Ecotech. And the only reason it would be a tad bigger is because it actually sticks out maybe just a smidgen more, because on the inside of the tank, there's like this little cupped magnet that the actual pump sets in, and that allows you to kind of adjust the angle of flow a little bit. But when you really get down to brass tacks and you compare the two, they're so similar in size that it shouldn't even be an issue, concerning whether or not you should go with the Nero 5 over the Ecotech. As far as space goes, they're really going to be about the same within the tank itself. But the bonus, the plus that goes to the Nero 5 from AI is because their entire pump is in the aquarium, it cools itself. So going back to that Ecotech pump gets really hot. That motor gets really hot. Well, the Nero 5 is self-cooled because it's constantly got water flow going through it. So that's a huge win that we got to give to the AI. That Nero 5, that self-cooling motor, that's obviously going to increase the longevity and just livelihood of that pump. It's going to be so much better, I think, in the long run. I could be wrong, but I just feel like a self-cooled pump is going to last longer. So let's talk about some of the cons when it comes to the Nero 5. So con-wise, I wish they had more flow patterns. I like the flow patterns they have, and they have served me well. But I got to admit, when I turn on that nutrient transport mode from that Ecotech, I do see a difference. Maybe if I was to run 2 Neros in a pulse mode of some sort, I could get a similar effect. But I think that's really why I have not switched over to one or the other entirely, and I keep both in my tank, because they both are so good, and they both bring different things to the table, that I just like that option of such randomized flow from 2 different pumps, that I just decided to just stick with 2 different brands and not opt in to buy another Nero 5. I really like my Nero 5, but like I said, I wish they would have maybe gave it a little bit more thought on some type of a nutrient transport mode, or some type of a hygienic mode, or cleaning mode for your aquarium. I think that would have been another huge benefit for them if they would have done that, and they would have included as many options for flow as Ecotech did in their pump. Hands down, 100%, I would have not canned, but sold the Ecotech and gone all in for the Neros. But it's that little bit of difference that keeps me running both in my tank. So overall, guys, I think that they're both an absolute excellent option. If you want to save yourself a little bit of money, go with the Nero 5. It'll do just as good as the Ecotech. If you aren't really concerned about the little bit of extra that Ecotech costs, then go with that Ecotech, because that really do like the options that they give you right out of the box, and that nutrient SPS transport mode. If you're going to have a lot of stick coral, calcium-based coral, SPS in the tank, it would be super beneficial for you. And if you're like me and you want the best of both worlds, just go ahead and get them both, because they're both an absolutely excellent pump. So guys, I hope you enjoyed the comparison video. I hope it's answered some questions for you. And if you have any other questions, or if there's anything I didn't quite cover that you would have liked me to cover, leave it down in the comment section below, and either I'll send you a message or I will include it in the next video. Take care, guys. Stay safe. God bless.